What's up guys, Levi here. So I thought I would do this video to basically go through my journey as a wrestling fan and basically what I'm hoping to do in terms of wrestling on this channel. So to start off, I became a wrestling fan, I want to say like late 90s, early 2000s. My first memory of watching the WWE, F at the time, was a Royal Rumble where I can't remember exactly when it happened, but Stone Cold threw The Rock out the Rumble, and I remember me being a little kid, I was really upset about it. And then a few days later, we went to like a local shopping centre and we saw this Rock t shirt. So my dad bought me it, and from then, I was just sold on a fan, Had all the wrestling figures when I was a kid, did the WWE sticker books, and as I got older and started gaming, I started playing the WWE games, like SmackDown versus Raw, and then when it became, 2K, so WWE like 2K14 and onwards from that. So going forward from when I first become a wrestling fan, we were watching wrestling weekly as a family. So because it airs quite late at night, we always taped it on, VCR, as some people would call it, and we'd watch it as a family, whenever we could. So, from that era, I quite liked, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, retrospectively, because Triple H was like the heel at the time, who can ever forget his reign of terror? I liked The Undertaker. I think I just started becoming a fan of it just after his ministry stuff, so I have a lot of nostalgia for his biker gimmick, American Badass. We watched stuff like that, and then, the Ruthless Aggression era when John Cena debuted, when The Undertaker had, like, just gone back to his, dead man gimmick. I ended up going off of wrestling for a little bit. It was, I think it was the year before Michaels versus Taker at Mania 25. I know, what a freaking time to start watching it. But I'm sure a lot of people will understand that liking wrestling when you're in a certain age group, it's a little bit, I don't want to say taboo, but it's one of those things where you do get a lot of people that will clown on you for liking wrestling. Wrestling's fake. You like wrestling. Like that sort of thing. And I just got on it so much that it just kind of put me off watching it altogether. I basically peer pressured into it. So I didn't watch for a few years, from like Mania 25 until one night when I was in college. I was up at like 1, 2 a.m. and I was thinking to myself, I'll see what's on. Saw that Raw was on, and I thought, oh, I'll see what's going on nowadays. Flicked Raw on. CM Punk was the WWE champion. I was like, how has this happened? Because I liked CM Punk from when he debuted in ECW. Yeah, there was just something about him, like the tattoos, the Killswitch Engage entrance theme that kind of drew me towards him. Plus, he was really good in the ring. So after watching that, I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to see what's gone on the last few years. Watched Taker versus Michaels, both parts. I was like, this is like the best wrestling match I've ever seen. And then saw the CM Punk pipe bomb, Summer of Punk. Some of the feuds that he was doing before I'd got to the point where I was. But from then on, I just carried on watching, and it's, stuck with me to this day. So I've watched the rise of Roman Reigns when they were trying to push him down people's throats and they were rejecting him. I watched the remainder of The Undertaker's career, um, and, The Shield. I don't mind AEW. The thing is, I've not really watched it since they aired that footage of CM Punk backstage in London, because to me, that just seemed like a desperate ratings grab, all the while just trying to make CM Punk look bad because he did the interview with Ariel Helwani when he was talking about, why he got fired from AEW. But I still do keep up with some of the things that go on in AEW. So obviously, there's Chris Jericho in AEW, Edge in AEW, Adam Cole, MJF, who, even if I don't watch AEW, like MJF is like one of the greatest heels going at the moment. Um, and then you got Sting. So I was watching AEW when Sting debuted, which was awesome. It was nice to see that he got a second chance, following what happened in WWE. I watch YouTube clips and stuff like that of what goes on. So, like, I know currently that Darby Allin's the world champion. But yeah, so even then, like, I don't really watch SmackDown or Raw on a weekly basis anymore because, again, I'm having to stay up until 1 in the morning to watch, like, 6 hours of wrestling a week. And for the most part, it's not really been that great recently. Even some of the pay-per-views as well, I'll end up skipping a couple of those just because the builds haven't been great, and then the matches that are on there, you're thinking to yourself, is this worth me staying up for? Which, more and more recently, it's kind of been no. You know, some of the people that are on these deserve to be a lot bigger than they actually are, but again, it's just booking and stories which are just kind of dragging them down at the moment. But I do watch the big pay per views, so I watch WrestleMania live, Royal Rumble live as well. So I am keeping up with like all the bigger things that are going on within the company. In terms of me seeing live events, I've only ever been to one, which was SmackDown during the Survivor Series tour in 2005, which took place just after Eddie Guerrero had died. So it was a shame I never got to see Eddie Guerrero live. I remember being a kid, I was really upset about that because, I thought Eddie Guerrero was such an awesome wrestler, He is definitely on my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. And then I think Taker wasn't there either because I think he took some time off, injured. They were teasing his return at Survivor Series, so unfortunately I didn't get to see The Undertaker either. But the good thing was, at the time when they were doing, brand warfare, you had Shawn Michaels, Big Show, Kane all turn up to SmackDown, which was really cool. Currently, at the moment, I've not got any wrestling events lined up. I'm not too knowledgeable about the UK indie scene to be able to go to UK indie shows, and even when SmackDown or Raw does come to the UK, you have to give up like an arm and a leg just to go there. The whole thing with ticket prices and everything. Eventually, I'll probably check out a WWE live event just so I can be in the crowd and get to experience it. But yeah, that's my journey as a WWE fan. Now, how I'm hoping to incorporate wrestling into this channel, I've got a few ideas of what I could do. So, the easy one would be, top 10s, top 10 wrestlers, top 10 female wrestlers, top 10 pay per views. I could do a top 10 pay per views of like each year, for example. I could do top 10 WrestleManias, stuff like that. I'm also hoping to somewhere down the line be able to do weekly reviews of wrestling. Now, I think I mentioned this in my intro video to this channel that I was wanting to do this, and I think in order for it to be as easy as possible to do this, I would have to basically lump like a week's worth of wrestling into one video. Because if I, watched Raw and then did a video, then SmackDown did a video, NXT did a video, if I went back into watching AEW and did a video, I think it would be easy if I just watched like a week's worth of wrestling and then just did one video just summarizing everything and then just giving my thoughts. And then the other idea, which I'm not too sure if I'm going to do this because you'll understand when I say this. So I was looking at doing a How I Would Book series. So, for example, I do have a video in my files about how I would have booked John Cena's retirement tour because I wasn't too pleased with how that went. But then when you look at things like that, it's not an original idea, I will admit that, because obviously Adam from, What Culture, Cultaholic, now doing his own thing, that's what he was well known for, doing his How I Would Book series. And I don't want to feel like I'm releasing something, that's not exactly copying somebody's work, but, somebody's idea. So I'm toying with the idea of it. If I do end up doing it, then I've got some ideas of what I would want to book. But in that sense, we'll just see what happens. So that's my introduction to the wrestling portion of this channel. Hopefully I'll be able to get like one wrestling video out a week. Also, when you think about top 10s and stuff, it might be easy to do in short form videos, so I could do like, YouTube shorts about it or something, but we'll see what happens with that. For now, I just want to focus on making, long form content, just to get the ball rolling, and then, once I'm more comfortable being on here, doing all this, then, see what happens, I guess. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.